Of the Economic Development and Communications Committee meeting. We have present Councillor Dutta and myself. We have Alderman Zuko joining us, or has joined, and we also have Councillor Fox joining us from off-site. We can co-opt, and it would be ideal to, if someone would move, or sorry, if Councillor Dutta would move to co-opt Councillor Harvey. Have we got anyone else up there or not at the moment?
No one's there.
All right. So, well, I'll put it to the vote then.
Hang on, have you got a quorum in order to do that?
I think I have. Yeah.
Actually, you'll be an ex officio.
Oh, I'm
Ex officio for,
that's right,
for getting a quorum.
I'll put to the meeting that Councillor Harvey be co-opted. And I see Councillor Dutta nodding, so I will nod as well. So that's good. So welcome, Councillor Harvey. Confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting. We had an open portion of the meeting of Thursday, the 2nd of June, and a special Economic Development Committee meeting on the Tuesday, the 14th of June. Somebody would move. Thank you, Councillor Dutta. I'll put those to the vote. All those in favour of accepting those as a record? Thank you. Supplementary items, there aren't any. Indications of pecuniary and conflicts of interest on the open agenda. I have a conflict on item 6.4, so we'll ask Councillor Dutta to chair the meeting at that point if he's willing. We'll go to substantive reports. First report is 6.1, Business Events Tasmania, the annual funding submission, an MOU, and welcome the Director of you Director, Chief Executive, Manager?
Yeah, Chief Executive.
All of those. You're very welcome. Would you like to address us, please?
Thank you. Thank you so much for once again seeing us. So I think I've met you all before in these presentations. So a very similar format to what we usually cover. So I'll try to skip through some of the content that you may be familiar with. So the business events role, as most of you would be aware, so we're the highest yielding visitor in the visitor economy, and we drive visitation outside of peak periods, predominantly between May and September. Our delegates tend to stay beyond the duration of the business event, and we know anecdotally that Tasmania is the destination that sees the greatest percentage of stay beyond the business event. We know through our research that 55% of the delegates intend to return within the first 2 years. And importantly, business events provide benefits beyond the visitor economy, and that includes trade and investment opportunities and knowledge exchange. Our role at Business Events Tasmania, we have two roles. We are both a direct bidding for business events, so we have a sales capacity, which is dissimilar to most membership organisations and I guess not-for-profit organisations within the visitor economy. So we bid on about 50% of the business events that come to Hobart, and our other role is to promote the destination more broadly. So we engage in sales activities in our marketplace to drive business events to Tasmania and directly connect them with the visitor economy. This is probably a little bit hard to read on the screen.
A bit more than little, yeah.
So what we've included here, I can't zoom in for you, but I can see if I can read it on my piece of paper. We work a number of years out, and we refer to it as our sales pipeline. So when I met with you last year, it was still a very uncertain time for us. We could see that our marketplace was trying to come back, but there was obviously a lot of stops and starts with the event marketplace. We came back from Christmas thinking that we had really solid business due to commence from early in the year, and that obviously was delayed. But I can comfortably sit here today and say that our market is back, and it's certainly making up for the 2 years that it was shut down. Activity in Tasmania is strong. Numbers are stronger than a normal year in activity. and we're starting to see bidding and conversions coming back at greater levels than we ordinarily would. So that's a pleasing result and great for Hobart and Tasmania. So that just what it says on that slide, which you can't see, is so from the 1st of January to the 31st of May, Hobart hosted 29 business events with an economic impact of around $17 million in direct expenditure, and that equates to about just under 6,000 delegates and 19,500 room nights. There's the next 4 years up there, so that's really just to demonstrate that we have really solid business in our pipeline, both confirmed and pending. We ordinarily would be about 35 to 40% conversion on the activity we bid on. We're seeing our conversion to Tasmania at about 55% at the moment. So it's definitely a strong destination post-COVID. So unless anybody wants me to specifically read out any of those numbers, I can move on to the next slide. During COVID, we were fortunate enough to secure some Austrade funding through the Regional Recovery Program. What that meant is an organisation like Business Events doesn't have the operational capacity from a funding point of view to deliver what we refer to as familiarisation programs. So we host people who are conference organisers that are looking to come to the destination, but a familiarisation program is all about hosting conference organisers that aren't considering the destination, so people that have never been here or don't intend to come here. We know that the greatest way to convert people to our state is by bringing them here. So through this funding, we've been able to deliver, currently we've been able to deliver 2 FAMILs, so just under 50 delegates have been in. We've already bid on $41 million worth of business, so that's 48 pieces of business. We've already won $10 million worth of business. And when I talk about the economic impact of the millions, so we have quite an out-of-date research project, which we're actually just talking to the state government about bringing up to date. So these numbers are probably actually conservative. We research delegates to determine how much money they spend per day and how long they stay beyond the delegate behaviour. So the economic impact is calculated directly by how much delegates are spending. We're seeing, we calculate these numbers on $687 a day per delegate, and we know anecdotally through the bidding activity we're doing at the moment, we're seeing spends of $3,000 per delegate per day. So it's potentially significantly higher, but we'll still go with what we can from a research perspective that's qualified. So the FAMIL program has been hugely successful. We've seen a number of people who have come to Tasmania. We try to connect them with the city and also, with the culture of who we are, and we're seeing that to be a strong reason to convert. Last week, outside of this program, we also hosted New Zealand, a group of 9 conference organisers from New Zealand through Tourism Australia, and we have another program in August with 36 people from around Australia and 10 from Indonesia. That's just to give you, I always give an overview of what our current sales funnel looks like, and as you can see, it's very strong. Pending business is business that we've bid on, and we're anticipating about 55% of that to convert into Tasmania or to Hobart. Under development is we're in conversations with those conferences, so there's almost 300 conferences there that are under development and in the pipeline to go to a bid, and then leads are qualified into that can fit into the city. The Business Event Attraction Fund, it's a state government initiative that allows us to incentivise activity. We've recently taken over the management in administration of this fund. since October last year, which is quite critical in us being able to be agile in a converting fund to secure activity to Hobart and broader Tasmania. So since July, 19 business events proposed to take place in Hobart have been approved through the fund, and that equates to about 6,000 delegates, and I think $18 million there. We typically use this fund to secure the strategic conferences, so those that align with the broader city values and key trade and economic sectors. That just touches on some of the benefits beyond tourism. We've just created a whole suite of new digital assets, interviewing people that are involved in strategic conferences, and unfortunately I don't have one to share with you today, which I was hoping to. They're just in the final stages. But it's a really important part of what we do, and particularly for a city like Hobart. So there's a list of some of the more recently won and held conferences. So as you can see, we're always very successful in science, medical, health, and we're seeing a lot more in education and planning. Some of them, once again, hard to read. I can share the presentation with you. During the lockdown for our sector, our team worked on reviewing all of our digital assets and our assets, so that we hibernated. We had a couple of positions that unfortunately we had to let go, but we pivoted the team, if that's still a buzzword, to deliver customer journey work, to re-engage with our customer and to evolve our assets and our marketing to meet the needs along the journey. And one of those was outcomes as a bidding tool, and we launched a new website. So we're just in the final stages of member testing with the bidding tool. Creates efficiencies and broader access and reach to the marketplace. So we also launched a new magazine. When we looked across and some of the work that came out of the customer journey, the type of information or delivery of information, a lot of bureaus like ourselves are doing the same thing in the marketplace. So we found that more of a storytelling piece really suited and told our story, and it fitted with some of the needs of the marketplace. So we launched a magazine late last year. I think December was our first, and we've just sent the third one off to the designers. And this is a really great tool that we use, and then we obviously create content that's reshared on our social and digital channels. It's a soft copy, and it's sent through to our marketplace, and it's embedded into trade publications and media that go to our sector. So it's just a really nice piece of work that tells the story of Tasmania. And just some of the other marketing that we've done, and this all includes, and this is all represented in the MOU that we have with the city. So the partnership is about creating some new marketing assets, and during the COVID period we also secured some funding that enabled us to create a suite of marketing assets, digital assets, particularly around that ambassador network that we have with the strategic conferencing, and also some promotional videos for those strategic conferences to promote the city. So when they announce a conference internationally or domestically, but predominantly internationally, they promote the city to attract delegates to come. So we created some of those new assets. So that's the end of the information I'm sharing in the presentation, and obviously we really value the work we do with the city and the partnership we have. The team we work with here are always fantastic to align with, And we're having a lot of conversations around those strategic alignments around the new vision for the city and strategic plan to ensure that conferencing can play a part. So thank you very much, and happy to take questions.
Thank you. Look, thank you very much. That was excellent. I'll open the event. Open the item for discussion and recognise that Alderman Zuko has joined us. So open the item for discussion. Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Chair. Just two questions. Firstly, with regards to hotels, the rooms, are they available, or the capacity, to do bigger conferences are limited here in Hobart? That's question one. Mm-hmm. And question number two, with regards to research, what sort of a methodology is used, and when was the research done?
Okay, so I'll answer the first question first. So it's a very good question. The 5 new hotels that opened across Hobart have greatly increased our capacity and opened new markets for us. So traditionally we are we have a few different types of clients. So traditionally we're an association marketplace, and that's where large associations are coming and having their conference. The new hotels open the corporate and incentive market. They're the highest yielding, so that's where you're seeing the really high spends and the engagement across the community from an experiential perspective and connecting with culture. They also invest back into the city that they stay in from a corporate social responsibility. So those new hotels allowed us, because of the quality and the brand of those hotels, have allowed us to attract that market. So instantly we had an increase in our capability into that marketplace. The association market is still in Hobart, capped at 1,100. So what we did strategically as an organisation is to try to drive and focus on the size of the conferencing from an association point of view, because that's how we would grow the return to the state or to the city from an association point of view. We do have limited capacity from a conferencing point of view, and typically in our sector that really relates to the trade exhibition space. That's how a conference organiser funds their activity, and for some of these organisations this is their annual event where it's the biggest revenue raiser for their organisation. So the trade exhibition is where they sell that off to suppliers. That is restricted, but then you could look at it from the perspective that they have to freight to come here to have an exhibition. So, potentially you're never going to compete with the larger cities. We obviously have great capacity from an off-site dinner point of view for those larger conferences. You've got PW1, you've got MAC2, you've got other venues. But beyond that experiential, you have limitations. We're trying to work with the RTOs to develop the product for the experience and scale that we need. There's a lot of great things to do here, but they can't deliver to groups. So I think we're in a much better place. Interestingly and pleasingly, the hotels are at pretty incredible levels at the moment. The good thing for us is that we come typically Monday to Wednesday, so we do still fit because we are low season and low and midweek, whereas I do know it's becoming incredibly difficult to get a room in Hobart on a weekend. So amazing that we put all this extra stock into the market and there still seems to be a really buoyant market. So that hopefully addresses that first question, and happy to, if it doesn't, to answer anything further. And the second question was... You mentioned research. Yep. You mentioned anecdotal and then research. Yep. So I was wondering what methodology of research and how whole was the research data that you have? Yeah, so the research data that we do ourselves is on delegate behaviour. So what we're looking at, and there's no one else within the tourism market that do delegate behaviour for business events. So it's been an activity that's been funded and commissioned out of our organisation. So it's now it's going on to 5 years old. So that is about spend, behaviour, dispersal beyond the conference, intent to return, how many visitors they're bringing with them. So they're generally bringing family or friends. So that's our official research is 4 to 5 years old. We're hoping to engage a new project for that, to update that. Anecdotally, we know, because we're bidding on pieces of business, they're supplying us with budgets, they're supplying us with information, telling us how many people are bringing. So our research 5 years ago would tell you that 25% of business event delegates are bringing at least one person with them. The conference organisers are telling us it's higher in Tasmania, and it's higher. As a destination, this is the highest they see, people bringing people beyond that. So we capture in our sales, we have a database that captures all the activity, the budgets, the spends, the amount of time they're staying in our system and when they intend to return. So that's the official research and the anecdotal.
Marnie.
Councillor Harvey?
Thanks, Damon. Chair, a few years ago we added a little clause to the expectation here with regard to
Yep.
and plastics and that sort of stuff, and I was really pleased with the outcome from that. Having spoken to Jeff Holmes about it, how you had workshops and things with your providers and things. So in the same vein with sustainability, what are you hearing in the market about carbon neutral tourism? And I raised this in the context of Peter Gutwin in March 2021 released a statement saying that we needed to have carbon neutral tourism in Tasmania by 2025.
Yep.
So my maths is okay. That's only like 3 years away. No longer have Peter Gutwin, but the tourism industry is committed to that project, carbon neutral tourism 2025, in order to be competitive into the future, because there's a thing going on, people are not flying as much because they're trying to keep their carbon footprint down. Countries like Costa Rica are guaranteeing you can have a carbon neutral tourism holiday. It's becoming a competitive area. So are you looking at that space and working with the Tourism Council to be part of that carbon neutral tourism 2025?
Absolutely. So you'll be pleased to know that our market, our sector is probably the most advanced in this space because the client demands it. So, I mean, Tasmania is in a unique position. There's a carbon negative status as well around for Tasmania currently, that's right. So it's complex and it's way above my pay grade from a complexity point of view on what is really true, authentic carbon neutrality and making a difference. So I sit on the Tourism Industry Council as a director, so I'm aware of some projects that are taking place in that space. It feels to me, I think it's okay to say it's my personal opinion, there's a lot of work going on by a lot of people, but everyone needs to be corralled together and we need to do it together instead of all doing it in competition. But it is such an important thing, and we are uniquely positioned to really leverage it. So I have a member of my team that is engaged in sitting across any committees that we can, and currently doing a project work, and we're just about to look at engaging a consultant to assist us.
Is that the same consultant as everybody else is engaging?
Well, there's a few, so it's and that's where it's becoming complex in what really, I guess, makes a difference. For us, it's important that we're across that and we're connected into the tourism network and what is happening in that broader marketplace, and we sign up to that. As far as our marketplace is, customers are demanding credentials. It's actually one of the first things they ask for. They won't look at a destination unless we can supply them with the credentials of the operators. So we actually have a portfolio of everything that our operators, so what hotels do, how they manage their waste, how they, what they're doing to offset all of their emissions. So we have to submit that as part of our bidding process, and if we don't, we can't progress the bid.
You've answered my question. Thank you very much.
There's still a lot of work in that space, to be fair, but it's actually trying to navigate it and bring it all together, I think.
And you're absolutely right. It's an exciting space, and we have to get it right. And there is a lot of chatter and talk, but there's a lot of things to be delivered by 2025 that we don't know how to do yet. So it's very interesting to see where this leads. And Hobart's part of this as well. So we have to, play our game as well with our tourism operations in Hobart. So. And
through our magazine, we actually have, it's not actually called this, but like a spotlight on sustainability. So we actually share stories, because we've found that for a lot of the smaller operators, it's that education piece. So we have a series of member events that we touch on this, but we're actually sharing it through the magazine to show what Tasmania is doing, but it also helps those smaller operators that really just don't know how to navigate it in their current business model, especially coming out of COVID. So it just gives simple ways, which is what we did when we worked with the city a couple of years ago around how do we educate people on ways that you can simply do this and that don't have to, be a large cost to your business, and that can actually improve it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Only two things. First of all, how much cold calling do you do as opposed to hot targeting? And how much do you engage with the Hobart business and community to see who knows who's wanting to go somewhere, as in groups, etc.? Because there'll be a mine of really good, valuable information by people who know that a certain society or group is looking to coming to Tasmania.
So we manage a database that captures rotational patterns of associations. Corporate clients are much harder to navigate because they're all different, and sometimes it might be the executive assistant, it might be the chair of the board, it might be a director. So we manage a large database that we refine around what activity is coming and when the patterns of rotations are due. So that's your low-hanging fruit, that's more your warm lead. So we're managing that every day. The team go into market and meet with the clients face-to-face in their organisations, at trade shows. So they're always re-engaging and finding new opportunities. We have a program in our sales team that is about new calls. So they all have to make at least a minimum of 5 brand new calls every day, and that's where we manage that pipeline. That's why we have that pipeline we do, because it's the leads that are the new cold calls, and then the pendings are the warmer conversions. So we have the second part, I think, of that question, if I have answered the first part, is that we have 160 member organisations that we regularly work with and communicate with to share information around what we know is coming, and then for many times they're actually calling us as well. They might be working directly with a piece of business and they're contacting us to assist them in building out the experience the client's looking for beyond what they know. So very regularly, I guess, is the answer. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's good. It's a very impressive start to the year.
Yeah, no.
The monetary value compared to 2017, 2016 to now, and the leads you've got, which is really, really fantastic.
Yeah, we have 4,500 clients in our database that we manage, and we're a very small operation. We have 9 staff in total, and 5 of those are in our sales capacity. So, I'm incredibly proud of what the team achieve. I think for a small team, we certainly manage. I think we do for 240 bids a year.
Fantastic.
Which is why those bidding tools and things like that are from a process point of view, and that's one of the strengths I bring to the role. That's my background, managing customer journey work and, process, evolution. So that's really important because otherwise we can't grow.
I understand. Alderman Zuko, questions?
No questions, but look, I've always supported this organisation and all the work they do. They'd be wonders for this city. Thank you.
Excellent. So if someone could move the motion. I've got everyone moving their hands, so I'll take Councillor Dutta and I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of the funding application?
Aye.
In favour? You okay, Councillor Zuko, Alderman Zuko? Good. Thank you, Marnie. Thank you very much for giving us the time and congratulations and have a great year in the game.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all so much for your support. See you next year. Unless you come to our event. We'll see you.
Think about, yeah.
Okay, so the next item, folks, is 6.2, which is the World Cities Summit with a report of the Chief Executive Officer. I'll open that item for discussion.
Chairman, I think this is terrific to have our CEO represent the council at such a forum, so I'm very happy to move the item once I can scroll down to it.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up for discussion. Alderman Zuko.
Oh well, if I had known this before, I could always. I'll be in France at that time for a little thing. I could probably shoot over back to Singapore and attend with the CEO, but it's okay. I'll let the CEO do it on their own. She'll be fine.
Let me tell you, Alderman Zuko, it is a fabulous conference. It's one of the world's best conferences for local government.
Good.
If it wasn't an election year, Marty, we'd all be trying to go to it.
No, I trust the CEO in going on that. I was just thinking that maybe she needed someone to carry a bag, that's all. Anyway, no, well done. I fully support this.
Excellent. Anybody else?
My only concern would be offsetting the carbon emissions from the flight to Singapore and back, so you might have to go by sailboat or something.
Okay, so Councillor Dutta, you're in favour?
Yeah, I'm in favour. I just had a question though with regards to this. Let me just have a. In 4.8, there's a mention of mayors and city leaders attending, and the Lord Mayor of Melbourne, the CEO of Perth, and I notice here, it's my observation in reading that we have two of them going from here. Is there any particular reason as to why we need two?
Two officers?
Yeah.
I'll put that to
The
the
CEO and there's another, I think.
Thank you, Chair. So through you, look, in terms of this report, there are a number of other members of staff from other councils that will be in attendance. This wasn't a complete list at the time of drafting, so certainly Lord Mayor Capp will have a senior staff member with her. If not, the CEO will be a director and certainly her chief of staff travelling as well. And similarly, that will be the case for Perth also. At this stage, my understanding is CCLM are still finalising the full list of attendees, Chair, so I'm happy to provide that information once it's complete.
Alderman Zuko.
Yeah, look, I don't want to sort of get involved in matters that are of the CEO, but I don't want to be detrimental to Councillor Dutta, but any matters in regards to who accompanies the CEO, any staffer. If the CEO wants to take 10 staff, it's up to the CEO. It's not up to us to advise or nominate or say to the CEO how many staff or whose staff are going. It's our role as elected members, it's whether or not an elected member's going. So as far as I'm concerned, if the CEO believes that other people can go, it's up to the CEO, not us.
Through you,
Comments
Chair.
here.
Sorry.
Yes, CEO.
Sorry, Chair. I actually should have addressed the question properly. Sorry, Councillor Dutta, I actually didn't hear the first part of the question. Just in regards to the Director of Connected City attending, the purpose of the Director's attendance is also to really launch our new approach to Invest Hobart, and this really is about aligning the work of the Council, certainly with the state and federal government agencies as it relates to trade and investment. And given Director's background in state government, certainly over the last several years, that will certainly be a value add. And in fact, the program that we've prepared for the trip actually includes a range of key meetings that have actually been facilitated by the Director, utilising those state and federal contacts as it relates to the trade area. And part of that Invest Hobart strategy going forward is very much about aligning our efforts with other levels of government to make sure that we're doing what we can to best position the City of Hobart as a capital city, both nationally but also internationally, for investment. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Someone, Councillor Dutta.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just with regards to this, my reason for bringing this up is, these reports are given to us and we make observations and we seek clarification. How many the CEO takes is not the issue. The issue is that, it is our duty as elected members to ask these questions, and the answer given to me by the CEO satisfied quite totally but it's not there in the notes, and hence the question. So, it's nothing detrimental, but it's my duty to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is someone prepared to move the item, please?
Yes, I'll move it.
You were just beaten, Alderman Zuko, by Councillor Harvey.
There's no.
So I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Then the next item is the Economic Development Strategy Plan, which is item 6.3. It has a memorandum of the Manager City Economy and the Director Connected City, together with an attachment. I'll open that item for discussion. Would you like to briefly address, Jackie?
Certainly, Chair. So the purpose of this briefing is really, I guess, to set some broad parameters around the work that we're proposing to do around developing the next economic development strategy, and to seek any feedback from this committee at this stage on the plans. As I said, they are at pretty early stages. We are in the process of assembling the city economy team and getting the full group together. We're also in the process of reviewing quite a bit of data that we have accessed through Department of State Growth, ABS, and we've also recently secured a software package called Spend Map, which allows us to track expenditure across the city. So it's really, Chair, to alert the committee to how we plan to approach this piece of work and to seek any feedback at this stage.
Thank you. Alderman Zuko. Alderman Zuko?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Harvey?
Only to focus on the same theme as I was on before. The modern city is responding to the urgencies of the 21st century, the climate emergency, the biodiversity emergency. Our economic strategy, I think, needs to align with those two things and how we're part of the solution. And I'm hoping that this economic strategy does align with those two critical issues in the history of humanity.
Look, I guess that's possibly taken as a given from us at this stage. As Marnie indicated, we know that even if we're looking at ourselves from a tourism destination, that the market and investors are looking to us for those credentials.
Yep.
So part of this process is going to need to be to develop those narratives and those tools.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
My only comment would be, it's a big brief that you've put through there, and I appreciate that you and your team are fairly up with it, or well up with it, in terms of the project background and project objective, and the work that needs to be done. It's almost like 25 or 30 actions. There's always a chance. I mean, I'm not sure how many of the elected representatives or even the management have had much reference back to our previous economic development strategies. I wouldn't want to have something that's so wide and so big that it doesn't actually, it's not either doable or measurable. And I'm wondering whether or not this group, including Alderman Zuko, who was very vocal last time we were looking at an economic development strategy to make sure we had the right setting, we ought to have, before you employ somebody that's it's evidenced and predicated in the paper, we actually could have a workshop just so we make sure the elected representatives are giving you what they believe are what they see individually as the priorities, so that we haven't suddenly got this huge team that comes back with something that either is, unwieldy.
So we'd be very happy to do that, and we'll work on the right moment to schedule that. Just to clarify, I guess, in relation to the paper around the recruitment, that's talking about assembling the city economy team. So it's not for the purposes of the project developing the economic development strategy. This is around recruiting to some of our key roles around international business engagement, and so we're very alert to not setting an unrealistic goal for ourselves in terms of what we can achieve. There's a lot of day-to-day business as usual work that happens in the economic development space. Absolutely take on board your comments around not having heaps and heaps of objectives. Certainly my best case scenario for a policy or a strategy is that you can capture the guts of it in about 3 dot points. So I feel very much on the same page as you around not creating this incredibly complex and long document that's impossible to implement.
Sure, no, that's excellent. Is someone prepared to move that, please? Thanks, Councillor Harvey. Moved by Councillor Harvey. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anybody against? And that's approved. I need to vacate the chair for item 6.4, and I've asked Councillor Dutta if he would take over the chair.
Thank you. I'll move a motion that Councillor Dutta take the chair.
Thank you.
All those in favour? Those against? Declare that carried.
Thank you. Anyone would like to speak to this?
It's actually the Chief Executive.
Please.
Thank you, Acting Chair. So the purpose of this report, albeit brief, was really just to provide the committee and penultimately council with an update on the development of the Committee for Hobart work that's been undertaken over recent months. So it's fair to say, Acting Chair, that we have been involved, a number of us, across different jurisdictions with committees for cities before. They are incredibly valuable in terms of the role that they play in ensuring that issues, often of a federal nature, are raised with governments of the day and also oppositions around sort of key policy areas, often coming from evidence-based research around issues such as housing, investment in cities, for instance, some regional committees for focus, of course, on regional development priorities and so on and so forth. So in my experience across other parts of Australia, committees for cities, so the Committee for Sydney, Committee for Melbourne, are very active, and they do have a lot of influence when it comes to where investment is funnelled, particularly, as I said, from a federal government perspective. It's also a kind of key place for organisations to come together with a single purpose, and that is the advancement of the city. The City of Hobart hasn't had a committee for Hobart before, and it would be, I think, going forward from an officer perspective, an important coming together of key organisations, one that's an inclusive committee that would be representative of a range of different sectors and interest groups, representing penultimately the interests of the city and the community at large. So I do very much recommend this report to the committee. committee. But as I said, it's an update at this stage just to talk through the work that's proceeded to date. And as I said, Acting Chair, my involvement has really been based on my experience in other cities and other jurisdictions with these sorts of committees, having been a member of them previously, but also a colleague working alongside a range of committees, and certainly the Committee for Melbourne in more recent years. It's there for noting, Acting Chair, and happy to take any questions that may arise from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bill.
Chairman, so it appears you're... Oh, go on, Marty, you go first.
No, you go, Bill.
Okay. It appears you've got background in this, and I only came across this probably, I don't know, last year when I think Alderman Thomas mentioned it to me, and I've done a little bit of research on looking at committees elsewhere, and I think it's a really strong, purposeful idea, and I think it's probably quite essential, you know, to have some sort of a committee like this. And I guess what I'd like to also do is move that you, with your background and experience on these committees, would be a great member of the committee. So, through you, Chair, could I recommend that the CEO of Hobart be nominated to be part of the committee?
Can I put that to vote? All in favour?
We'll have a discussion, maybe?
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chair, look, I totally respect our CEO, and if we're going to start discussing whether or not we adopt the CEO on this committee, I think it should be discussed in a closed environment, because there might be some questions or some things that we'd like to discuss with the CEO. So if this is the amendment that's on the table at this point in time about the CEO joining this outside body, I think we need to move this item into closed.
What's the view of the others?
How many others we got? Just
you.
Just look, if that helps Alderman Zuko, then I'm happy to move it into close if required.
Well, I'll explain. Generally, when we're discussing matters of staff, and in particular, you know, one of our staff is being involved in an external body, it's always been discussed in closed, and I feel uncomfortable discussing it in open.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, we'll do that.
Okay, happy to support a motion to move it into closed.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you. So we'll call Alderman Tim back.
Okay, so hang on, move the motion.
Yeah.
We'll just have to wait for Craig.
Can we move it?
Yeah.
That's,
So we've still got to finish the open agenda, and then we go into closed.
Well, you can call Alderman Thomas
yeah,
back.
that's what I'm saying. We need to call him back.
We're up to item 7 then.
Yeah.
Has he fallen asleep? I thought we might have needed the defibrillator. So I'll move that Alderman Thomas take the chair again, if we need to do that. Not required.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone. The item 7 is the Committee Action Status Report.
We'll receive and noted.
Does anybody wish to raise any item on that status report? Silence being held. I'll put the motion by Alderman Zuko for noting. Put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. It's good. I'll now move into closed session.
Mr. Chair. Sorry, questions without notice.
Oh, sorry, questions without notice on the open agenda. I don't think we've ever had one at this committee. All right, so if we could just, once you let us know, Craig, when the...
Have a motion for closed, Chair?
Thank you, Alderman Zuko. Put that motion to